What if everything you thought you knew about humanity's origins, about the very essence of what makes us, was not just incomplete, but fundamentally, startlingly wrong? Imagine a truth so profound, so paradigm-shattering, that its revelation would unravel centuries of carefully constructed beliefs, from scientific dogma to sacred texts. This isn't a mere hypothetical, a late-night thought experiment born from too much caffeine and a sci-fi binge. This is the chilling, persistent whisper emanating from the most ancient corners of our world, a narrative deliberately obscured, perhaps even actively suppressed, by forces deeply invested in maintaining the illusion. What would you do? How would you even begin to process it if you discovered that our history, as taught in every school from kindergarten to MIT, was merely a convenient fabrication, a soothing lullaby designed to keep us from asking the most dangerous questions? For generations, scholars, archaeologists, and theologians have debated the genesis of civilization. The inexplicable leap from primitive hominids to complex societies capable of sophisticated astronomy, monumental architecture, and intricate social structures. They've offered theories, built impressive models, and often, quite frankly, shrugged their shoulders in the face of baffling anomalies that simply didn't fit their meticulously crafted timelines. We are talking about more than just missing links in the evolutionary chain. We are talking about an entire chapter ripped from the story of humankind, leaving gaping holes that conventional wisdom struggles and often fails to bridge. Consider the Sumerians suddenly appearing on the Mesopotamian plain like a flash flood across the desert, bringing with them a fully formed civilization, complete with writing, advanced mathematics, a detailed cosmology, and even complex legal codes, seemingly from nowhere. This wasn't a gradual ascent, it was an explosion of innovation, a cultural supernova that defied every expectation of how human societies evolve. Their clay tablets, etched with cuneiform, tell a story that is both magnificent and terrifying, a saga of beings from the heavens, the Anunnaki, who descended to Earth. These aren't vague, allegorical tales, they are detailed accounts, almost journalistic in their precision, describing otherworldly beings who possessed unimaginable power and knowledge. They spoke of a home planet, Nibiru, a celestial body whose elliptical orbit brought it close to Earth only once every several thousand years. This recurring theme of cosmic visitors, of gods who walked among men, echoes across diverse ancient cultures, from the Nile to the Andes, from the dense jungles of Central America to the desolate plains of Australia. The consistent thread running through these disparate narratives is too compelling to simply dismiss as collective hallucination or convenient myth-making. There's a resonance, a shared archetypal memory that suggests a common, perhaps universal experience. But what if these gods weren't mystical entities, but highly advanced beings whose technology was so far beyond our ancestors' comprehension that it was interpreted as divine magic? What if their interventions weren't acts of benevolence from on high, but calculated strategic moves in a cosmic game, with Earth and its nascent life forms as their unwitting pawns? The implications are staggering, challenging not only our religious beliefs, but also the very foundations of biological science, astronomy, and anthropology. The official narratives, the ones we are encouraged to accept without question, paint a picture of linear progression, a slow, methodical crawl from single-celled organisms to the complex beings we are today. But what if that crawl was given a powerful artificial nudge? What if the spark of consciousness, the sudden acceleration of human intelligence, wasn't a natural evolutionary leap, but a deliberate genetic modification? The very term Anunnaki itself, often translated as those who from heaven to earth came, carries an undeniable gravitas, a sense of alien origin that is hard to ignore. Their descriptions in ancient texts are vivid, painting portraits of beings with immense power, capable of manipulating the very fabric of existence, or at least possessing technology that made it appear so. These aren't just fantastical stories. They are records meticulously carved into stone and clay, passed down through generations. They form the bedrock of entire civilizations, shaping their laws, their spiritual practices, their very understanding of the cosmos. To dismiss them as mere primitive imaginings is to disregard a massive body of evidence, to intentionally blind ourselves to a persistent nagging question that refuses to fade into the annals of forgotten history. This is the central enigma, the Gordian knot that we must attempt to untangle. Are the Anunnaki figures of divine myth placeholders for forces our ancestors couldn't comprehend, or do they represent a hidden chapter in our genetic code, a story written in our very DNA, waiting to be deciphered? The answer, as you'll soon discover, might be far more unsettling and infinitely more profound than any fiction could ever conceive, leaving us with a dizzying sense of unease about our place in the universe. This journey into the heart of an ancient mystery is just beginning, and your perspective is an essential part of uncovering the full picture. What are your initial thoughts on these ancient accounts? Have you ever questioned the standard historical narrative? Leave a comment below with your honest opinion about what you've heard so far. Your engagement helps us continue to produce content that challenges the status quo. If this initial glimpse into the Anunnaki Files has piqued your interest, it's because this channel delivers exactly the kind of deep dive you crave. So, hit that subscribe button, activate the notification bell, because what's coming next is going to peel back layers you didn't even know existed, revealing truths far more intricate and impactful than you can possibly imagine. The deeper we go, the more the conventional world crumbles, leaving behind a stark, undeniable reality. As we peel back the layers of dust and dogma, the figure of Zecharia Sitchin emerges. A name whispered with reverence by some and dismissed with disdain by others, yet undeniably a catalyst in bringing the Anunnaki narrative into the contemporary conversation. A self-taught scholar fluent in ancient Sumerian cuneiform, Sitchin, an American Soviet émigré who spent his formative years in what would become Israel, dedicated his life to translating and interpreting these enigmatic texts, specifically the Epic of Creation, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and countless other tablets that languished in museum archives, often relegated to the dusty corners of academic indifference. His groundbreaking work, particularly his seminal book, The 12th Planet, published in 1976, wasn't just a translation, it was a reimagining, a radical reinterpretation that proposed a literal reading of these ancient records. He didn't see metaphors or allegories where others did. He saw historical accounts, detailed chronicles of events involving flesh and blood beings, albeit ones of immense power and advanced technology. This perspective was and remains nothing short of revolutionary, shaking the very foundations of Egyptology, Assyriology, and biblical studies, much like a powerful tremor rattling the brick-and-mortar structures of academia. Sitchin's primary assertion, the cornerstone of his provocative theory, revolved around a hypothetical 10th planet in our solar system, which he dubbed Nibiru, based on his reading of Sumerian cosmological texts. According to his interpretation, Nibiru followed a highly eccentric orbit, taking roughly 3,600 Earth years to complete one revolution around the Sun. It was from this distant, yet periodically returning world that the Anunnaki, a race of technologically advanced beings, supposedly originated. They arrived on Earth, Sitchin posited, around 450,000 years ago, driven by a desperate need to find gold. Not for its aesthetic value, like a shimmering trophy in a display case at the Met Gala, but for a far more critical purpose: to repair their planet's diminishing atmosphere using gold particles as a shield. This wasn't some minor intergalactic road trip. It was an interstellar emergency, a mission of planetary survival that brought them to our fledgling world. The narrative continues with the Anunnaki establishing colonies in Mesopotamia, then a marshy, fertile land, and setting up mining operations in what we now know as Africa. But the arduous labor, the back-breaking toil of extracting tons of precious ore from the earth proved too much for their own rank and file. A group often referred to in Sitchin's work as the Igigi, or those who turn and see. These junior Anunnaki, akin to overworked interns at a Wall Street firm, eventually rebelled against their harsh conditions, initiating a mutiny that threatened to derail the entire gold mining operation. This pivotal moment, as interpreted by Sitchin, led to a desperate meeting of the Anunnaki Council, a celestial board meeting with cosmic stakes. It was during this crisis that the brilliant, albeit controversial, solution was proposed: to create a primitive worker, a being genetically engineered from the existing hominids on Earth, capable of understanding commands and performing manual labor. This wasn't just about efficiency, it was about survival for both the Anunnaki and, inadvertently, for humanity itself. The lead scientists, figures like Enki and Ninhursag, described as genetic engineers of profound skill in the Sumerian texts, are credited with this monumental achievement. They experimented with the DNA of Homo erectus, or early Homo sapiens, blending it with Anunnaki genes to create Homo sapiens sapiens, us. This creation of man wasn't a spontaneous act of divine magic. It was, in Sitchin's view, a deliberate, scientific manipulation of our genetic blueprint, a sophisticated biological upgrade, much like a tech company pushing out a new software update for humanity. The texts, read literally, describe this process in surprising detail, from the mixing of essences to the gestation in a mother goddess or birth goddess figure, implying cloning or in vitro fertilization techniques that sound eerily modern. This isn't just a story about ancient astronauts, it's a story about the deliberate, intelligent design of humanity, not by a single all-powerful deity, but by a council of advanced beings with their own agenda. Imagine the implications. Our existence, our very sentience, is not merely the outcome of blind evolutionary forces, but the result of a targeted intervention. The hidden DNA code, then, isn't some mystical secret, but the literal genetic signature of our extraterrestrial progenitors, remnants of their own sophisticated genome woven into the fabric of our being. This is where the narrative shifts from mere archaeological curiosity to a profound challenge to our understanding of self. If Sitchin is even partially correct, then our conventional understanding of biology, of evolution, of history, requires a radical overhaul. We are not just earthborn, we are, in a very real sense, star-seeded, and the divine myth aspect begins to dissolve, replaced by a picture of advanced science so far beyond our ancestors' comprehension that it could only be interpreted as godly power. The Anunnaki, with their flying craft, their ability to create life, their profound knowledge of the cosmos, would have been indistinguishable from deities to early humans, much like a modern smartphone appearing to a medieval peasant would seem like pure magic. Do these ancient narratives, these seemingly outlandish claims, make you question the neatly packaged stories we've been given about our origins? Or do you find them too far-fetched, too much like a Hollywood blockbuster to be true? Comment below if you've ever thought about how much of our accepted history might actually be a carefully curated version of the truth, leaving out the most extraordinary bits. Write in the comments, "This is unbelievable," if you're finding this narrative as mind-bending as we are. The narrative of the Anunnaki, as translated by Sitchin, offers a compelling, albeit controversial, explanation for the sudden appearance of modern humans and the rapid development of civilization. It suggests that the missing link isn't missing at all. It was engineered, and that engineering project, driven by an alien species' desperate need for resources, forever altered the trajectory of life on Earth, leaving an indelible mark not only on our history, but quite possibly within the very cells that make us who we are today. The creation narrative, often recounted with hushed reverence in sacred texts, takes on an entirely different, almost clinical complexion when viewed through the lens of Anunnaki genetic engineering. Forget the ethereal touch of a divine hand. Imagine instead the precise manipulation of genetic strands, the meticulous splicing of two distinct biological codes. The ancient Sumerian texts, particularly the Atrahasis epic, describe a process that, while cloaked in the language of myth, resonates with an eerie prescience to modern genetic science. These accounts speak of mixing the essence of an Anunnaki god with the clay of early man, a metaphorical representation, perhaps, of combining advanced DNA with the simpler genome of a hominid. The resulting being, Lulu Amelu, the primitive worker or man, was designed for one primary purpose: to alleviate the strenuous labor of the Anunnaki. This wasn't a benevolent gift of consciousness, it was the creation of a sophisticated tool, a living, breathing automaton capable of understanding and executing complex tasks. The transformation wasn't merely physical, it was a profound cognitive leap. Early hominids, while intelligent, lacked the sophisticated reasoning, the capacity for abstract thought, and the advanced communication skills that suddenly manifested in Homo sapiens sapiens. This radical cognitive upgrade, often attributed to a divine spark or a slow, arduous evolutionary process, aligns remarkably well with the idea of genetic augmentation. The Anunnaki, according to these interpretations, endowed their creations with elements of their own intelligence, their capacity for language, and their ability to innovate, albeit to a controlled degree. They needed workers who could not only dig, but also understand instructions, manage tools, and even communicate effectively. This wasn't about creating equals. It was about creating highly functional subordinates, a bespoke workforce tailored to their specific needs. It's a utilitarian approach to creation, much like a modern corporation designing a new piece of hardware, optimizing it for maximum output and efficiency. But the story doesn't end with the initial creation. The texts hint at further interventions, at refinements to the human prototype. There were challenges, setbacks, and perhaps even moral dilemmas among the Anunnaki themselves regarding the ethical implications of their genetic project. The concept of the mother goddess, Ninhursag, actively involved in the birthing process of these new beings, suggests a form of in vitro fertilization or even cloning on a massive scale. Imagine a cosmic laboratory, a sterile environment where life itself is being crafted and replicated, not through natural selection, but through deliberate design. This account directly parallels narratives found in various cultures, including the biblical story of Adam and Eve, which can be reinterpreted not as a singular act of divine creation, but as a symbolic representation of this early genetic experiment. The Garden of Eden could be seen as the Anunnaki's pristine research facility, a controlled environment where the first iterations of humanity were nurtured and observed. The Igigi, those disgruntled junior Anunnaki who sparked the need for human labor, played a crucial, if secondary, role in this grand scheme. Their rebellion wasn't just a labor dispute, it was a pivotal moment that forced the hand of the ruling Anunnaki, leading directly to the accelerated creation of humanity. Once created, humans served not only as miners, but also as servants, agriculturalists, and even as intermediaries between the Anunnaki and the emerging human population. This established a hierarchical structure, a cosmic caste system, where the Anunnaki ruled as unchallenged deities, and humanity served as their loyal, albeit genetically engineered subjects. This dynamic is eerily familiar in the power structures of many ancient civilizations, where rulers claimed direct lineage from the gods, suggesting a continuation of this initial Anunnaki-human relationship. Consider the biblical flood, a catastrophic event recounted in countless global mythologies. From the Anunnaki perspective, as interpreted by Sitchin, this wasn't an act of divine retribution against a sinful humanity, but a complex, almost geopolitical decision made by the Anunnaki Council. As Nibiru approached Earth, its immense gravitational pull would have triggered cataclysmic geological events, including massive tsunamis and torrential rains. Some Anunnaki, viewing humanity as a failed experiment or an inconvenient liability, advocated for its complete destruction. Others, notably Enki, who had a paternalistic connection to his creations, secretly warned a select few, instructing them to build an ark, thus ensuring the survival of a remnant of humanity. This intervention wasn't about saving souls. It was about preserving a valuable, if imperfect, asset, or perhaps for Enki, an act of defiance against his peers. This reinterpretation reframes the flood narrative from a moralistic fable into a high-stakes, interstellar political drama where the fate of an entire species hung in the balance. It fundamentally shifts our understanding of agency and destiny. We weren't simply survivors of a natural disaster or divine wrath. We were subjects in an ongoing experiment, our survival contingent on the whims and internal politics of our creators. What does this do to your sense of self, knowing that such an ancient, widespread narrative could have such a profoundly different, technologically driven explanation? Does it make you rethink the very nature of miracles and divine intervention? Comment below if you've ever found yourself pondering the uncanny similarities between various flood myths around the world. Write, "Ancient mysteries run deep," if this interpretation of the flood has really made you pause and reconsider. The story of human creation, the Agigi rebellion and the Great Flood, when viewed through the Anunnaki lens, are not just isolated myths, but interconnected chapters in a grand, sweeping saga of genetic manipulation and cosmic intervention, leaving us to wonder about the true legacy embedded within our very being. The transition from cosmic engineers to revered deities was a natural, almost inevitable progression for early humanity. Imagine a group of primitive hunter-gatherers, barely scratching a living from the unforgiving earth, suddenly encountering beings with the power to command the skies, to produce sustenance from barren ground, to heal grievous wounds, and even, as the text suggests, to raise the dead. Their ships, perhaps humming with an otherworldly energy, descending from the heavens like fiery chariots, would have been nothing short of miraculous. Their tools, capable of shaping mountains or moving immense stones with apparent ease, would have been perceived as instruments of magic. When these Anunnaki beings, dressed in their futuristic attire, wielding technology far beyond comprehension, issued commands or offered knowledge, they would have been seen not as visitors, but as gods. This wasn't a slow, evolutionary leap of faith. It was an immediate, visceral recognition of power that defied all earthly understanding. Consider the sheer psychological impact. To a people whose lives were dictated by the harsh realities of nature, floods, droughts, famines, and predatory beasts, the Anunnaki offered a semblance of control, an illusion of order. They taught humans how to irrigate the land, how to cultivate crops, how to build shelters that could withstand the elements. They introduced writing, mathematics, and astronomy, not as abstract concepts, but as practical tools for managing complex societies. These gifts, which accelerated human civilization by millennia, were seen as divine blessings, proof of their benefactors' godhood. The Anunnaki, in turn, readily accepted this veneration. Why wouldn't they? It solidified their control, ensured compliance, and created a stable environment for their ongoing operations. This symbiotic relationship, built on awe and dependence, cemented their position at the apex of the emerging human hierarchy. The ancient pantheons across Mesopotamia, Egypt, and even echoes in later Greek and Roman mythologies bear striking resemblances to the Anunnaki hierarchy. Enlil, often depicted as a stern, powerful sky god, could be seen as the commander-in-chief, the head of the Anunnaki mission. Enki, the cunning, often benevolent god of wisdom and waters, aligns perfectly with the role of the chief geneticist and humanitarian. Even goddesses like Inanna Ishtar, associated with love, war, and fertility, reflect powerful female Anunnaki figures. These aren't just arbitrary names in a spiritual tapestry. They are characters with distinct personalities, rivalries, and agendas, much like a powerful family dynasty operating a multinational corporation. Their stories, filled with intricate details of their exploits, their conflicts, and their interactions with humanity, feel less like abstract myths and more like historical dramas, carefully chronicled by their awe-struck subjects. The pervasive theme of humanity being created in the image of their gods gains a terrifyingly literal interpretation here. We were not merely inspired by them, we were designed to look like them, to function in a similar way, albeit with limitations. Our physical form, our mental capacity, even our emotional landscape might be echoes of our Anunnaki creators. This concept transcends mere religious doctrine and plunges into the realm of biological determinism. If our ancestors believed they were made in the image of their gods, and those gods were advanced extraterrestrials, then every aspect of our being carries the imprint of an alien lineage. This profound idea challenges not only our understanding of our past, but also our potential future. What latent abilities, what dormant genetic programs might lie within us, waiting for the right cosmic trigger, or perhaps for the return of our creators? The advanced technology possessed by the Anunnaki would have undoubtedly been interpreted as pure magic. Their skyboats or fire-breathing dragons in ancient texts could easily be sophisticated spacecraft. Their ability to communicate over vast distances might be telepathy or advanced communication devices. Their medical knowledge, capable of extending lifespans or performing intricate surgeries, would appear to be miraculous healing. To the uninitiated, the distinction between advanced science and divine power is non-existent. The Anunnaki cleverly leveraged this perception, weaving themselves into the fabric of human worship and governance, ensuring their authority remained unquestioned for millennia. They established cities, designated priests, and created elaborate rituals, all designed to reinforce their divine status and maintain control over their created workforce. Does this radical re-evaluation of ancient myths make you uncomfortable? Or does it resonate with a deep, intuitive sense that there's more to our story than we've been told? It's a challenging concept, one that forces us to dismantle deeply ingrained beliefs. What if the stories we tell our children about gods and goddesses are actually distorted memories of a colonial power, an advanced civilization that once ruled Earth? Comment below if you've ever felt that traditional religious or historical explanations just didn't quite add up. Write in the comments, ancient gods were aliens, if this perspective truly resonates with you. The Anunnaki's transformation into deities wasn't a spontaneous act of worship. It was a carefully cultivated relationship, an exercise in soft power and technological superiority that solidified their dominion over nascent humanity, leaving an indelible mark on our collective consciousness and, potentially, on our very genetic makeup. Stepping away from the ancient clay tablets and into the contemporary world, the question inevitably arises, what if these accounts are not merely fanciful myths, but hold grains of tangible truth? In recent decades, a growing chorus of researchers, independent scientists, and even a few courageous whistleblowers have begun to hint at a different narrative, one that suggests mainstream institutions, be it academic, governmental, or religious, are actively engaged in a systematic effort to suppress inconvenient truths. The very fabric of established archaeology and evolutionary biology is predicated on a linear, gradual progression of human development. Any evidence that contradicts this neat narrative, any artifact that is out of place and time, is often dismissed, hidden, or reinterpreted to fit the prevailing dogma, much like a stubborn puzzle piece forced into the wrong slot. Consider the enigma of Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey, a site that has utterly rewritten the timeline of human civilization. Discovered and excavated since the mid-1990s, this megalithic complex predates Stonehenge by some 6,000 years, and the invention of writing and pottery by millennia. It was built by hunter-gatherers, supposedly incapable of such complex engineering and sophisticated artistic expression. Yet here stand massive, beautifully carved T-shaped pillars, weighing up to 60 tons, arranged in intricate circular patterns. How did a culture without metal tools, without settled agriculture, without even basic pottery, manage to conceive, plan, and construct such an awe-inspiring monumental structure? The official explanation struggles, often resorting to vague notions of unprecedented social organization. But for those open to alternative interpretations, Göbekli Tepe serves as a glaring beacon, suggesting an advanced precursor civilization, or perhaps a direct influence from a non-terrestrial source, just as the Anunnaki narratives imply. The whispers extend beyond archaeological sites. There are persistent rumors of suppressed archaeological findings, of artifacts stored away in the basements of major museums like the Smithsonian, deemed too anomalous to be publicly displayed. These could include elongated skulls found in Peru, hinting at a distinct lineage of humanity, or metal objects discovered in coal seams millions of years old, suggesting advanced metallurgy long before humans were supposedly capable of such feats. The very notion that certain discoveries are deemed unacceptable to the established narrative is a chilling thought, raising questions about intellectual freedom and the integrity of scientific inquiry. It implies a gatekeeping function, a deliberate control over the flow of information that shapes our understanding of our past, and by extension, our future. And then there's the realm of genetics, a field that, ironically, often finds itself on the front lines of challenging evolutionary orthodoxy. The complexity of the human genome, the sheer elegance of its design, continues to astound scientists. While many attribute this to billions of years of random mutation and natural selection, others are starting to whisper about the possibility of intelligent design, not from an abstract deity, but from a tangible, albeit extraterrestrial source. Could the hidden DNA code be manifesting itself in subtle ways, in genetic anomalies that defy simple evolutionary explanations? Could certain predispositions, certain intuitive leaps, certain unexplained talents within humanity be dormant echoes of a more advanced genetic lineage? The question then becomes, who are they who don't want these truths told? Is it a monolithic shadow government, a cabal of powerful individuals, or a more insidious, diffuse network of vested interests? Academic institutions, often funded by grants and endowments, have a powerful incentive to maintain the status quo. Their reputations, their careers, their very livelihoods depend on upholding accepted theories. Religious organizations, built on specific doctrines of creation and divine intervention, would face an existential crisis if a scientifically provable alternative Genesis story emerged. Governments, too, might see the revelation of an alien-engineered humanity as a destabilizing force, potentially leading to widespread panic, social unrest, or a complete loss of authority. The implications are profound, touching every pillar of human society. Is mainstream science actively ignoring inconvenient truths, or are they simply too comfortable within their established paradigms to entertain truly revolutionary ideas? It's a question that demands honest introspection from the scientific community. The historical record is replete with examples of groundbreaking theories initially met with scorn and ridicule, only to be later proven correct. Copernicus, Galileo, Darwin all faced immense resistance for challenging the accepted wisdom of their time. The Anunnaki narrative, outlandish as it may seem to some, presents a similar challenge, pushing the boundaries of what we deem possible and forcing us to reconsider the very nature of proof. This isn't just about ancient alien theories. It's about the integrity of our intellectual pursuits and our collective willingness to confront uncomfortable realities. Have you ever encountered a historical or scientific fact that just didn't sit right with you? A piece of information that felt like it was missing context or being deliberately misrepresented? Comment below if you have any examples of what you feel might be suppressed history. Write in the comments, the truth is out there, if you believe that official narratives often conceal more than they reveal. The idea that we are being deliberately shielded from a profound truth about our origins, that there are gatekeepers of knowledge, is a disturbing yet persistent undercurrent in our modern world, one that demands our critical attention and an unwavering commitment to uncover what they don't want told. The concept of junk DNA, once a dismissive label for the vast stretches of our genome whose functions remained unknown, now stands as one of the most compelling, albeit indirect pieces of evidence in the Anunnaki narrative. For decades, mainstream science, particularly during the early days of genome sequencing, categorized roughly 98% of human DNA as non-coding, seemingly purposeless sequences, remnants of evolutionary detritus. It was thought to be cellular garbage, mere filler material with no active role in our biology. This assumption, however, is slowly but surely being overturned by cutting-edge research. Scientists are now discovering that much of this junk is far from inert. It plays crucial roles in gene regulation, cellular signaling, and maintaining genomic stability. It's like finding that the unused rooms in an old mansion aren't empty, but contain intricate, hidden mechanisms that operate the entire house. But what if this junk is even more than just functional? What if it harbors a deeper secret? A genetic signature that points to an intelligent, non-terrestrial origin. This is where the Anunnaki hypothesis converges with modern genetic inquiry in a fascinating, if unsettling way. If humanity was indeed genetically engineered by an advanced species, it stands to reason that they wouldn't simply create a perfect, optimized product. They might leave behind specific markers, dormant genes, or even entire sequences that are not immediately active but serve as a record of their intervention, or perhaps a potential for future activation. Think of it as a cosmic time capsule, a biological Easter egg hidden within our very cells, waiting for the right conditions or the right technological key to unlock its secrets. One of the more intriguing, albeit controversial, genetic anomalies often cited in this context is the rhesus Rh-negative blood type. While the vast majority of humanity possesses Rh-positive blood, a significant minority, particularly concentrated in certain European populations, like the Basques, and specific Middle Eastern groups, are Rh-negative. This blood type cannot be easily explained by standard evolutionary models. It doesn't seem to offer any significant evolutionary advantage, and in fact can cause severe complications during pregnancy if an Rh-negative mother carries an Rh-positive fetus, leading to spontaneous abortions or severe health issues for the baby. This genetic incompatibility is a striking anomaly. If natural selection favors traits that promote survival, why would such a potentially detrimental trait persist, especially with a lack of a clear ancestral link? Some researchers, stepping outside the bounds of conventional genetics, have speculated that Rh-negative blood could be a direct genetic marker of a non-human lineage, a remnant of the Anunnaki genetic blueprint. This isn't to say all Rh-negative individuals are direct descendants of aliens, but rather that this specific genetic trait might be a vestige of the original genetic manipulation, a unique signature embedded within a subset of the human population that points to a different ancestral origin, or at least a significant divergence from the standard evolutionary path. It's a provocative idea, one that challenges the very notion of a single unified human family tree and suggests a more complex, perhaps multi-lineage origin. Beyond the RH factor, there's the question of our sudden cognitive leap. The rapid expansion of the human brain, the development of abstract reasoning, consciousness and self-awareness, especially in the last few 100,000 years, remains a puzzle for evolutionary biologists. While various theories exist, none fully account for the dramatic acceleration. Could this be attributed to the activation of those dormant Anunnaki genes, a carefully planned sequence of upgrades that unfolded over millennia? The Sumerian texts, recall, speak of the Anunnaki mixing their essence with early hominids. This essence could well be genetic material, encoding not just physical traits, but also cognitive capabilities. The potential for such genetic upgrades to be switched on or off, perhaps in response to environmental cues or even deliberate activation by our creators, adds another layer of complexity to the human story. What if our intuitive flashes, our moments of profound insight, our latent psychic abilities, if one accepts their existence, or even our inexplicable talents in areas like mathematics or music, are not purely human endowments, but echoes of our Anunnaki heritage? It's a thought that challenges our self-perception and our understanding of human potential. We might be more than just terrestrial creatures. We might be living libraries of cosmic information, our DNA encoding not just our personal history, but an entire interstellar saga. This idea transforms us from mere products of natural selection into carefully crafted vessels, potentially designed for a purpose we are only beginning to comprehend. Does the concept of junk DNA holding ancient extraterrestrial secrets resonate with you, or does it sound like pure science fiction? It's a bold leap, to be sure, but one that bridges ancient texts with modern science. Comment below if you've ever wondered about the mysteries hidden within our own bodies. Write, "Our DNA holds secrets," if you find this connection between Anunnaki and human genetics utterly fascinating. The ongoing re-evaluation of our genome, particularly the so-called junk DNA, and peculiar genetic markers like the Rh-negative blood type, continues to fuel speculation that humanity is not merely an accident of evolution, but a carefully engineered creation, a living testament to an ancient hidden DNA code deliberately woven into our very being. The question of what they don't want told is perhaps the most charged aspect of the Anunnaki narrative, forcing us to confront the uncomfortable reality that knowledge is power, and certain powers have a vested interest in controlling that knowledge. Who exactly are they? It's not necessarily a single, shadowy organization meeting in a bunker under the Denver airport, but a complex, interlocking web of institutions, ideologies, and self-preservation instincts that collectively benefit from maintaining a specific, controlled version of history and human origins. These gatekeepers range from the venerable halls of academia to the influential corridors of government, and perhaps, most profoundly, the established bastions of religious authority. Each has compelling reasons to resist a narrative that fundamentally alters humanity's place in the cosmos. For academic institutions, particularly in fields like archaeology, anthropology, and evolutionary biology, the Anunnaki hypothesis represents a seismic threat. Careers are built on decades of research supporting conventional timelines and evolutionary models. Textbooks are written, university departments are structured, and funding is allocated based on these established paradigms. To suddenly acknowledge an extraterrestrial intervention in human development would mean admitting that much of their foundational work is, at best, incomplete, and at worst, fundamentally flawed. Imagine the intellectual upheaval, the professional embarrassment, the sheer effort required to rewrite entire curricula and re-evaluate countless discoveries. It's far easier and far more convenient to dismiss such theories as fringe, pseudoscience, or mere fantasy, thereby protecting the intellectual capital and institutional inertia that have accumulated over centuries. Governments, too, have a vested interest in maintaining a stable, predictable society. The revelation that humanity was genetically engineered by aliens, that our gods were advanced colonists, could trigger unprecedented social unrest, existential crises, and a complete breakdown of established hierarchies. The very concept of national identity, of cultural heritage, of shared human experience would be thrown into disarray. What implications would it have for international relations, for defense strategies, for resource allocation? A world grappling with the realization that it is, in essence, a cosmic experiment could descend into chaos, or at least a profound period of uncertainty. Much like the intense secrecy surrounding UFO phenomena for decades, the potential societal impact of such a revelation would likely be deemed too high a risk for public disclosure, leading to a deliberate policy of suppression and disinformation. Perhaps the most potent forces resisting the Anunnaki narrative are religious organizations. For millennia, faiths across the globe have offered definitive answers to humanity's origins, purpose, and destiny. These narratives are the bedrock of moral codes, societal structures, and individual spiritual comfort. The idea of an alien creator, rather than a singular, omnipotent deity, challenges the core tenets of virtually every major religion. It redefines creation, original sin, and salvation in ways that could unravel centuries of theological doctrine. The power and influence wielded by religious institutions, their ability to shape public opinion and maintain social cohesion, would be severely threatened by such a paradigm shift. It is, therefore, entirely logical that they would actively work to marginalize any theory that undermines their foundational narratives, often framing them as heresy or dangerous speculation. This suppression isn't necessarily a sinister top-down conspiracy in the classical sense, but rather a confluence of self-preservation instincts across powerful institutions. It's an unspoken agreement, a collective reluctance to rock the boat of accepted reality. The tools of this suppression are subtle yet effective: ridicule, academic ostracization, limited funding for unconventional research, and control over mainstream media narratives. Anyone who dares to challenge the accepted story too vociferously risks being labeled a crackpot, a charlatan, or a conspiracy theorist, effectively neutralizing their voice and marginalizing their findings. Think of the historical examples, like the intense scrutiny faced by figures such as Ignatius Donnelly or Immanuel Velikovsky, whose challenging theories were met with fierce resistance from the academic establishment. The fear ultimately isn't just about what the public might think, it's about what they might do. If humanity were to collectively embrace the idea of an alien origin, what new questions would arise? What demands would be placed on institutions that have withheld this information? What would it mean for our future if we suddenly realized our past was dramatically different, perhaps even orchestrated? The implications are truly global and existential. The comfort of the known, however flawed, often outweighs the terrifying freedom of a radical, paradigm-shattering truth. This is why this powerful, multifaceted network of institutions, have every incentive to ensure that the Anunnaki Files remain just that: whispered legends relegated to the realm of myth and fantasy, far from the critical scrutiny of mainstream inquiry. Does this concept of institutional suppression resonate with your observations of how information is controlled and presented in our society? Or do you believe that truth will always ultimately prevail, regardless of efforts to conceal it? Comment below if you have ever felt that certain information is deliberately withheld from the public for fear of its implications. Write in the comments, knowledge is power and they control it, if you find this explanation of what they don't want told compelling. The deliberate obfuscation of our true history, if the Anunnaki narrative holds any weight, represents not just a cover-up of ancient events, but an ongoing manipulation of our collective consciousness, a subtle yet profound control over our understanding of who we are and where we come from. In the shadows of academic scrutiny and governmental secrecy, a new breed of intellectual maverick has emerged, driven by an unyielding desire to unearth the truth, regardless of the consequences. Imagine Dr. Evelyn Reed, a former geneticist from Johns Hopkins, her spectacles perched on her nose as she pores over ancient texts, not with a linguist's eye, but with a geneticist's analytical precision. Or perhaps Marcus Thorne, a disgraced former CIA analyst, his career torpedoed by his relentless pursuit of anomalous data points buried deep within classified archives. These aren't the figures you'd find on a mainstream history channel. They are the intellectual equivalent of independent journalists, operating outside the sanctioned narratives, using their specialized knowledge to connect dots that others refuse to see. They embody the relentless American spirit of independent inquiry, the same drive that led innovators in Silicon Valley to challenge established industries. Dr. Reed, with her background in bioinformatics and comparative genomics, approaches the Sumerian texts as if they were complex data sets. Instead of focusing on grammatical structures, she searches for patterns in the descriptions of Anunnaki essence, the mixing of clay and blood, and the sudden appearance of human intelligence. She uses advanced linguistic algorithms developed for decoding complex biological sequences to analyze the metaphors and allegories, looking for underlying scientific principles. Her theory, the Sumerian accounts, when stripped of their mythological veneer, read like rudimentary scientific papers, documenting a genetic experiment in rudimentary allegorical terms. She identifies specific words, seemingly out of place, that echo modern genetic terminology. Could divine breath actually refer to the introduction of viral vectors carrying genetic material? Could shaping the clay be a descriptor for cellular manipulation? Meanwhile, Marcus Thorne, utilizing his vast experience in intelligence analysis, applies his skills to the scattered fragments of archaeological evidence that don't fit the established narrative. He sees the out-of-place artifacts not as anomalies to be dismissed, but as critical data points. He cross-references ancient flood myths with geological records, searching for correlations that might point to specific cataclysmic events linked to Nibiru's supposed flyby. He connects the dots between ancient megalithic structures like Pumapunku, with its impossibly precise stonework, and the descriptions of Anunnaki technology capable of levitation or advanced cutting tools. His research isn't just about ancient history. It's about uncovering a pattern of intentional obfuscation, identifying the points where information was deliberately suppressed or altered. He often draws parallels to famous US government cover-ups, like Project Blue Book or the initial downplaying of the health risks of cigarettes, recognizing the same psychological tactics at play. Their individual investigations, initially disparate, eventually converge, much like two rivers finding their way to a common ocean. Reed discovers a subtle yet statistically significant anomaly in specific human mitochondrial DNA lineages that defies conventional evolutionary rates. It's a blip, a genetic signature that suggests a sudden non-linear acceleration in the human genome, like a burst of code uploaded from an external source. Thorne simultaneously uncovers a declassified Cold War-era intelligence report detailing an obscure archaeological dig in Iraq, where unusual metallic artifacts, unlike any known earthly alloy, were discovered alongside Sumerian tablets explicitly mentioning sky chariots and star beings. The report was immediately red-flagged and classified, the artifacts whisked away to an unknown location, much like the ending scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark. The tension builds as their independent inquiries bring them closer to a potential breakthrough. Dr. Reed starts receiving anonymous encrypted messages, subtle warnings appearing on her research servers, hinting at the dangerous nature of her investigations. Marcus Thorne finds his old contacts within the intelligence community suddenly going silent or offering veiled threats. Their credit cards are declined, their emails are hacked, and they notice cars following them discreetly at first, then with increasing brazenness. They are no longer just researchers, they are targets. This is no longer an academic pursuit. It's a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, played out on the silent streets of American cities, from a bustling cafe in Boston to a quiet suburban home in Alexandria, Virginia. The implications of their combined findings are staggering. Not only was humanity genetically engineered, but the evidence of that intervention has been actively, systematically suppressed for millennia and continues to be suppressed by powerful, unseen forces today. Their work suggests that the hidden DNA code isn't a theory, it's a verifiable biological reality, and the divine myth is a convenient smokescreen designed to obscure a technological truth. What would happen if they managed to put all the pieces together to present their evidence to the world in an undeniable fashion? What powerful entities would be exposed, and what would be the cost of that exposure? Their journey, fraught with peril and intellectual courage, stands as a testament to the enduring human drive to seek truth, no matter how uncomfortable or dangerous it may be. What would you do if you were in Dr. Reed's or Marcus Thorne's shoes, facing such immense pressure and danger while on the cusp of a world-changing discovery? Would you push forward, or would the fear of retribution force you to retreat? Comment below if you've ever felt the weight of fighting for a truth that others refuse to acknowledge. Write in the comments, the truth must come out, if you believe that secrets this profound cannot remain buried forever. The clandestine efforts of these modern-day investigators, working tirelessly to expose what they don't want told, represent a crucial turning point, pushing the Anunnaki narrative from the realm of ancient legend into the immediate, pressing reality of a potentially manufactured human origin. The pressure intensifies, a silent, pervasive force pressing down on Dr. Reed and Marcus Thorne, transforming their pursuit of truth into a perilous race against unseen adversaries. Dr. Reed's discovery of the mitochondrial DNA anomaly, a genetic fingerprint that defies conventional evolutionary timelines, is met with an immediate, sophisticated cyber attack on her university servers. Research data is corrupted, her publications are mysteriously retracted from academic journals, and her grant funding, previously robust, is suddenly frozen. She finds herself isolated, her reputation questioned by colleagues who whisper about losing her scientific rigor. You see, it's a calculated, subtle assault designed to discredit and disarm, far more insidious than a direct threat. Much like a well-orchestrated smear campaign against a political candidate in an election year. Meanwhile, Marcus Thorne's digital breadcrumbs, leading him closer to the location of the classified artifacts from the Iraqi dig, are systematically erased. His encrypted communications are compromised, and a series of accidents befall his few remaining allies. A sudden illness for a retired archivist, a mysterious car crash for a former intelligence colleague. These aren't mere coincidences. They are chilling messages, carefully calibrated warnings designed to instill fear and deter further investigation. He realizes he's not just dealing with bureaucratic resistance, but with a highly coordinated, well-resourced entity, perhaps a deeply entrenched, multi-agency operation that has been safeguarding this secret for decades, if not centuries. This shadow organization, operating with a level of impunity reminiscent of a Cold War-era spy novel, possesses the means and the motive to silence anyone who threatens to expose the truth about humanity's engineered past. Despite the mounting threats, a small yet significant portion of their combined research begins to leak. Dr. Reed, utilizing an anonymous peer-to-peer network, manages to release a heavily redacted scientific paper detailing her genetic findings, framing it as a theoretical model for accelerated speciation rather than explicit alien intervention. The paper, while couched in academic language, raises enough questions to spark intense debate among independent geneticists, particularly those outside the mainstream academic funding structures. It's a carefully placed Trojan horse, introducing the seeds of doubt into the scientific community, forcing them to grapple with anomalies that can no longer be easily dismissed. Thorne, recognizing the danger of directly exposing the classified information, uses his old intelligence channels to plant subtle clues with investigative journalists known for their tenacity and skepticism of official narratives. He sends them anonymous tips about obscure historical documents, strange geological formations, and unexplained aerial phenomena that, when viewed through the lens of the Anunnaki hypothesis, begin to form a coherent, albeit shocking, picture. He knows that outright proof might be too dangerous, but strategic whispers can galvanize a different kind of investigation, one carried out by the watchful eyes of the public. This is a gamble, a desperate attempt to turn the tables by decentralizing the search for truth, making it impossible for them to silence every voice. The climax of their individual pursuits comes when Dr. Reed, through a brilliant piece of computational archaeology, finally deciphers a hidden layer of meaning in a Sumerian text, one that directly describes a genetic sequence. It's a fragment, cryptic and metaphorical, but undeniably points to a specific, non-human genetic marker. Simultaneously, Thorne, following a lead from one of his anonymous tips, discovers a hidden vault beneath an old government facility, long thought abandoned. Inside, he finds not just the original out-of-place artifacts from Iraq, but also sophisticated analysis reports that confirm their extraterrestrial composition and impossible age, along with diagrams of what appear to be ancient genetic engineering labs. These aren't just theories anymore, they are tangible, physical proofs of Anunnaki intervention. The sheer weight of this evidence, the undeniable convergence of ancient texts, genetic anomalies, and physical artifacts creates a moral dilemma that transcends their personal danger. To withhold this information would be a betrayal of humanity. To release it could trigger societal collapse. They are now faced with the terrifying responsibility of holding a truth that could redefine our species. The implications are enormous. If our intelligence, our very consciousness, was engineered, what does that say about our free will? If our creators were driven by self-interest, what are their ultimate intentions? And if they were capable of such advanced genetic manipulation, are they still watching? Are we still part of their grand experiment? This block ends with the ultimate cliffhanger. As Thorne secures the physical evidence and Reed prepares to disseminate her full genetic findings, a team, dressed in unmarked tactical gear, breaches the perimeter of their respective safe houses. The faint sounds of sirens can be heard in the distance. But are they coming for them or for their pursuers? The question looms large. Will their monumental discoveries ever see the light of day, or will they succeed in burying the Anunnaki Files forever, maintaining humanity's convenient delusion? The tension is palpable, the stakes unimaginably high. What would you consider to be the most responsible course of action if you were in possession of such dangerous, world-altering information? To whom would you entrust it, knowing the forces that are arrayed against you? Comment below if you have ever struggled with the ethical implications of revealing a profound truth. Write in the comments, "The final reveal is coming. If you are on the edge of your seat, desperate to know what happens next, and if humanity will finally learn the truth about its engineered origins, the fate of human consciousness, and indeed the very future of our species, now hangs precariously in the balance, poised at the precipice of an unimaginable revelation. The immediate aftermath of the attempted raids on Dr. Reed and Marcus Thorne's safe houses isn't a clean victory for either side. The tactical team, efficient and precise, manages to secure some of Thorne's more easily transportable findings, but Thorne, anticipating such a move, had already uploaded crucial encrypted data to a network of untraceable servers. Dr. Reed, too, had activated a dead man's switch, ensuring that if she vanished, a heavily encrypted manifesto outlining her findings would be released to a pre-selected group of independent journalists and scientists worldwide. The sirens, it turns out, were not for them specifically, but for the general disruption, an unpredictable element that forced the shadow operatives to withdraw before securing all objectives. The truth, like water finding cracks in a dam, has begun to leak not in a torrent, but in a series of persistent, undeniable drips that promise to erode the carefully constructed walls of secrecy. This partial breach of security intensifies the global conversation. The scattered pieces of evidence, the subtle anomalies in human DNA sequences highlighted in Reed's leaked paper, the whispers of suppressed archaeological reports unearthed by Thorne's journalist contacts begin to coalesce in the minds of a curious, digitally connected public. Online forums explode with speculation. Podcasts dedicated to ancient mysteries gain unprecedented traction, and a new generation of citizen scientists begins to scrutinize official narratives with a skeptical, data-driven eye. The old dismissals of fringe theories no longer hold the same power in an era where information, however fragmented, can spread like wildfire across social media platforms, from Reddit to TikTok, making it harder for them to control the narrative entirely. The implications for humanity's self-perception are staggering. If we are indeed the product of an extraterrestrial genetic experiment, then the very concept of free will, of inherent human dignity, takes on a disquieting new dimension. Are we truly masters of our own destiny, or are we simply operating within the parameters set by our creators, perhaps even serving an unknown long-term purpose? The notion of being divine creations suddenly shifts from a spiritual concept to a biotechnological one. Our souls, our consciousness, might not be an ethereal gift from an omnipotent deity, but rather an advanced operating system, engineered by beings whose understanding of life transcended our wildest imaginings. It forces a profound re-evaluation of every major philosophical and religious text, demanding new interpretations that acknowledge an engineered origin. The Nibiru concept, often dismissed as pure fantasy, resurfaces with renewed urgency. If the Anunnaki arrived on Earth due to the cyclical nature of their home planet's orbit, then what happens when Nibiru approaches again? Is there a possibility of a reunion with our ancient engineers, or perhaps a reckoning? The ancient texts hint at the Anunnaki's departure, promising a return. This isn't just a historical curiosity, it's a potential future event, casting a long, unsettling shadow over our present. Would their return be benevolent, a check-in on their long-term experiment, or would it be driven by another desperate need for resources, potentially treating humanity as a renewable resource rather than sentient beings? The thought alone is enough to send shivers down the spine, raising existential questions about our preparedness for such an encounter. What if the hidden DNA within us is not just a dormant record of our past, but a key to activating latent abilities or ancestral memories? The notion of human potential suddenly expands exponentially. Could we possess dormant genes for telepathy, for enhanced sensory perception, for self-healing, or even for direct communication with a cosmic consciousness? This idea, often relegated to science fiction, takes on a new plausibility if our genome was intelligently designed and programmed by an advanced species? The current limitations of human biology might not be our ultimate ceiling, but merely a temporary, controlled state, waiting for the right external or internal trigger to unleash capabilities we can barely conceive of now. It promises a future where human evolution is not merely biological but also potentially re-engineered. This revelation, however fragmented, creates profound societal friction. Religious leaders grapple with how to reconcile ancient texts with a potential alien genesis. Scientists must confront the possibility that their sacred cow of gradual evolution might be a carefully constructed deception. Governments must decide whether to continue the cover-up or begin the slow, painful process of public disclosure. The initial responses are chaotic, marked by denial, outrage, and fervent belief. It's a moment of profound collective reckoning, a mirror held up to humanity, forcing us to ask, if we are not entirely self-made, who are we? What is our true purpose? And what responsibilities do we bear to our mysterious progenitors, if any? Does the idea of a potential reunion with our creators fill you with hope, dread, or a complex mixture of both? It's a scenario that redefines our place in the universe, shifting us from isolated inhabitants to a crucial piece of a much larger cosmic puzzle. Comment below if you have ever felt a sense of connection to something beyond our known world, an intuition that our story is far grander than currently accepted. Right, the universe is calling. If this vision of humanity's future, intertwined with its ancient alien past, deeply resonates with you, the partial unraveling of the Anunnaki Files, spurred by Dr. Reed and Marcus Thorne's courage, has ignited a slow-burning fire of truth, promising to reshape our understanding of history, consciousness, and the very destiny of our engineered species. The fragmented truths now swirling through the public consciousness, though fiercely debated and often ridiculed by mainstream media outlets, have irrevocably altered the intellectual landscape. The genie is out of the bottle, and no amount of official denial can fully contain it. The leaked data, however incomplete, has sparked a grassroots movement of inquiry, a collective thirst for answers that transcends national borders and cultural divides. People are no longer just asking, "What if?" They are actively seeking evidence, sharing information, and challenging the long-held narratives that once seemed immutable. This isn't just a revelation, it's an awakening, forcing humanity to confront a potentially unsettling truth about its origins and destiny. So where does this leave us? The Anunnaki Files, once relegated to the dusty shelves of ancient Sumerian literature and the whispered theories of fringe researchers, now demand a place at the forefront of scientific and philosophical discourse. The evidence, though circumstantial for some and undeniable for others, points to a past far more complex, far more dramatic, and infinitely more profound than any history book currently dares to teach. We are left with lingering questions that pierce the very core of our existence. If our intelligence was engineered, what does it mean to be human? If our civilization was kick-started by extraterrestrial visitors, what other ancient knowledge, what other technological secrets remain buried, waiting to be rediscovered? And perhaps most unsettlingly, if the Anunnaki left, will they return? What would their return mean for a humanity now slowly, painfully, coming to terms with its manufactured heritage? The journey of discovery is far from over. In many ways, it has only just begun. The pursuit of what they don't want told is not merely about deciphering ancient texts or analyzing genetic anomalies. It's about reclaiming our true history, understanding our full potential, and preparing for a future that might look nothing like the one we've been conditioned to expect. The answers, as elusive as they may seem, lie within the layers of ancient stone, the strands of our own DNA, and the courageous spirit of those who refuse to accept convenient fictions over uncomfortable truths. This challenge demands intellectual honesty, unwavering curiosity, and a willingness to transcend the boundaries of conventional thought. It is a call to action for every inquiring mind to look deeper, to question everything, and to piece together the fragments of a hidden history that could ultimately redefine our place in the cosmos. This incredible journey into the Anunnaki Files is just one chapter in a much larger story. If you've made it all the way to the end of this revelation, you've demonstrated a profound commitment to truth and a fearless spirit of inquiry. So prove it. Type, "I made it to the end" in the comments below, letting us know you're one of the few who dares to look beyond the veil. Your support fuels this work, helping us uncover more stories that challenge the official narratives and spark essential conversations. Don't forget to like this video to strengthen our resolve and help this content reach more truth seekers like yourself. And if you're ready to dive even deeper, to explore the specific technologies, the ancient sites, and the future implications of an engineered humanity, then click on the next video now appearing on your screen. It promises to build directly upon these revelations, taking you further down the rabbit hole of humanity's most profound secrets. The truth is calling, and your adventure into the unknown has just taken its most significant turn.